What's going on, everyone? My name is Carlos Serrano, and you are listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Tears podcast. This is a sports podcast where we dive deep into the life of an athlete, tackling topics on faith, the body, and the mind. In each episode, I will be having a new guest on the show where I will be interviewing them about their sports experiences, along with their personal faith journey. I hope this can be a show that can fill you up with encouragement and insight through the discussions that we will be having here. Now, with that being said, let's get on with the show. Welcome, everyone, to this first episode of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears podcast. I am joined by one of my best friends, Austin Boyd, Mr. Austin Boyd right here. You ready for this, dude?
I'm ready, Mr. Carlos.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited. You get to be my guinea pig for this podcast and this journey, and I hope everyone else who's listening is excited for this journey. So Austin, just kind of to start off, tell us about yourself and your experience with sports. What do people would like to know about your experience with sports?
So I grew up a little bit in the South and on the East Coast, and especially in the South, sports like baseball are huge. So when I started like 3 years old, picked up a bat, played wiffle ball with my dad, and it kind of just snowballed from there. I played primarily baseball for 13-ish years, something like that. Growing up, I was, the all-star kid and went to the tournaments and all that good stuff. Went pretty far one year. So it was good times, man. Growing up playing that, I played that up through like midway through high school, I think. But in high school, I kind of lost the love of the game. But then that was made up by love for other games. Like during high school, fell in love with basketball, volleyball, even played some rugby my senior year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Just stuff like that. So it was a blast, actually. But yeah, I actually had a lot of fun playing baseball, but I think, as we'll get into probably, is just lost love for the game, and the people I was surrounded with just wasn't great during high school, so I decided to stop playing.
Right. What was it that, if you could touch more about baseball in particular, because from what I know, you were pretty good at baseball.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I loved the game, I think, because it was something I was naturally good at. So as a kid, you're like, oh, I'm good at this, I'm gonna keep doing it,
Yeah.
So there was that for sure. But as I started getting into high school, some things that I noticed that I still loved about the game were I loved going to actual pro games, and I loved the environment, I loved the atmosphere. Yeah. It's almost not even about the game, is that it's just about...
It's experience.
It's just being there, and you're with your friends, your family, whoever, and then when something actually happens in the game, then you pay attention to the game. But it's more about just hanging out with people and building community. I think that's why I liked it a lot. But just the game itself, I don't know, I just kind of lost the love for it. That was affected by, I think, some of my coaches, by even some of my teammates. And so I just slowly stopped practicing and all that kind of stuff, and just was just like, And so I gave more time to sports. I started playing basketball way more, and then I definitely just decided to focus on school a lot. But baseball is one of those games, man, that I think it's just because of America's pastime, the nostalgia there, and the community sense around it, whereas sometimes other sports, it's like about the sport, like football, for example. You don't go to the football game for the chill community.
Yeah, no, if anything, it's quite
exactly. So for me, that's what I loved about it. So going to Padres games out here in San Diego is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, definitely, dude. So how would you say that your experience with baseball is now? Like, how do you look at baseball now, being more older at your age now?
Right. I haven't touched a baseball in years. And so I think for me, baseball, it's kind of funny now, man. I think this is some of the mental stuff now. I think because of some of the bad experiences I had that I connected to the sport.
Right.
It's something that I don't really pay attention to much now. Like, I won't go to a Padres game by myself or something, or I won't even pay attention much to baseball on TV or stats or players or anything much, I think. because of there's some mental connections that have been made in my head that
Right.
I just don't really care that much about the sport anymore because I don't want to have to maybe deal with old stuff, or I don't want to just go back, maybe feel like I'm retrograding type thing, but I want to move forward with new sports or whatever. So that's why, like I said, basketball, I've been huge into football recently, especially fantasy football.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, I see it subconsciously as like a way forward in sports, a new adventure.
No, yeah, definitely. And so those other sports you mentioned, like basketball and football, those are the sports that you're into right now, recently.
Right.
Tell me about like how you look at it as a fan, or even just someone who likes to play.
Dude, it's just like, I love how dynamic it is as you go, and then I think what's better about those sports than baseball is the trash talk. I just, dude, I love it. As soon as a dude when a guy whiffs on a swing in baseball, it's like, whatever, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
But when a dude misses a layup, when he misses a free throw, like all this stuff, it's just like, I love that so much.
Yeah.
And then I think I just really like, as I've gotten older, I've liked the intensity of playing and watching both of those sports. That I'm not a big fan of like going to pro football games in person, because sometimes it's just like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, no.
But definitely with my boys or people that I'm close to and watching, and then especially when like friends' teams are losing and your team's winning, it's just better. I think baseball has the community sense, but then those other sports really hit on the competition sense. I think that's what I've been hitting as I've been hitting my mid-20s and like hitting my prime, is that it's more about competition. I'm going to beat people, and I'm really happy about that. So that's been the thing. Yeah, so won my first fantasy league last year, so I'm just like all this good stuff. Yeah, I was the champ.
Was that the league that I was in, or
maybe.
Was that? I didn't do anything.
That's probably I won because it ended up being, instead of a 10-team league, it ended up being a 5-team league because half the teams didn't pay attention. I don't care. I still won.
No,
so I was I'll take it. Exactly. Most importantly, I won the money. So
that's a good point. Yeah, I like the point that you touched on with like baseball and striking out. Like I heard that with baseball you have to like get used to losing,
right,
and like just failing a lot.
Yeah.
Which is a tough mindset to have in sports in general. Like you want to be great all the time, and the fact that a pro baseball player, you have to get used to like striking out a lot, and very little with that. But even just the competition aspect with basketball and football, like, yeah, I really, I'm not a big trash talker myself, but I respect a lot of people who trash talk, but then back it up.
Yeah, dude, it's so fun.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit. So we're gonna. I want to ask you more about just your personal walk with God, because this is, yes, we talk about sports in this podcast, but we're also touching the spiritual aspect as well. So tell us about you and your personal journey with God and your relationship with Him. How's that been like, or what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian household, and for anybody listening, people who not only grew up in a Christian household, but their parents were like leaders of the church, preacher's kid is what we affectionately call each other. So I had, for lack of better term, I had a lot of this stuff kind of shoved down my throat in a loving way, but it just was always there, because it was not only my parents' lives as well that they were Christians, but it was also at least my dad's job. So I'm going to hear about it a lot. My mom is a doctor, so I would hear about that a lot too. But, a lot of it, a lot of our family was surrounded by God, and a lot of things we did was surrounded by God or focused on God or in some way, shape, or form related to church.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of growing up and how things were. I didn't really experience anything much different, except for me, what I've noticed about preachers' kids in my time is that they either choose to just go for it and totally be good Christian boys or whatever, or there's the kids that totally rebel. And so I decided I want to totally rebel. So that's me in a nutshell. And throughout middle school, most of high school, pretty much all of high school, I just chose to rebel and I didn't get to experience, quote unquote, experience much of the world, so I decided to do that. And so, yeah, it affected me a lot, and what actually affected me most was when I went out to Haiti after my sophomore year in high school. I just decided to do a humanitarian trip because I, for some reason, had this weird thing of I want to get out of America. I want to get out of this bubble I've been in. I want to experience something different. And so I probably didn't have the greatest heart going out there in terms of I want to actually serve, but God works in great ways. So I went out there, and that bubble was definitely popped, and I saw I have been taking advantage of not only what I have materially here in the States, but what I've been given spiritually. And so I just realized I have been given everything. I have a stable family. I have great parents. I have great siblings. I have people that truly care about me, even when I don't care about them. And I just realized, and God included, that I can't continue to take advantage of that. That's not right. That's not who I want to be as a man, Christian or not.
Right.
I don't want to take advantage of the people that love me. And so I decided to really explore God, and even though I grew up in the church environment, I needed to personally understand God for myself, from his scriptures, from experience. And so I decided to become a disciple of Jesus a few weeks after that trip when I got back. And so I've had a long roller coaster ride, as most Christians know. Yeah. And so, and we all experience ourselves. But honestly, man, I think the biggest thing was like, man, I cannot continue to take advantage of what I've been given and just continually rebel. When I've been given everything that I could ever want. It's just selfish, honestly. And seeing that where people wish they could have all of that and they don't, I'm like, that's not the kind of person I want to be anymore. Right. So that was the big thing. And then, of course, God and his character is what got me over that edge, and seeing that he's an amazing God.
Right. No, definitely. How much does that trip still resonate with you now? Just that single trip in itself, because I know you've gone a couple times back, but that first initial trip, like, I know, because for some people that can like last in their lifetime, and just or they can just like, oh, that was a nice trip that catapulted everything else. Is that still like a big thing for you?
Oh, no, it's a defining moment in my life for sure. You mentioned I've been back 3 or 4 times since then, and I am planning to continue to go back as hopefully a doctor in a few years.
That's right.
But that first trip, there's kind of snapshot memories that I have that will never leave my brain. I think when I first got out of the airport, and if anybody happens to have gone to the Port-au-Prince airport, it's just an image that you're not going to be able to get out of your head. Just how many people were there, how many people were begging, it was just intense. And so, of course, me being the little San Diego boy, I didn't deal with much of that.
Right.
And then another one was, this was a year after that big earthquake. I don't know if you remember that giant one in Port-au-Prince. There was about 10 to 20% of the population completely displaced in tent cities. So we were driving on this bridge. I remember looking over. There's 1 million people in tent cities right there. Wow. I was just like, I've never seen that before.
So you showed up like a couple weeks after.
Oh, no, not a couple weeks. No, I would say about a year after. So
which is still very fresh.
They're still rebuilding things now.
Yeah,
it's been
definitely.
What is it? That was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
The earthquake. So
crazy.
It's unfortunate, man, a lot of it. But that's why I want to go back. So definitely those snaps, I was like, wow. It's just those memories that will be there. And then that mixed with the beauty of the country, and most importantly, the beauty of the people, is that a lot of people have this conception of the poor that they're either incompetent or lazy or even arrogant, and that they don't even want to like work hard or something. And just seeing the people there, how deeply they cared, how deep a sense of community they had, how hard they worked. One sister in Christ out there in a village I would continually visit would walk 5 miles to and from work, and I was just like, oh my gosh, and they would work for 10, 12 hours a day. And I was just sitting here, why have I been given all of this? And I think those were the thoughts going through my head of that first trip, and really got me starting to think about that, is why haven't I been given this stuff, and why am I taking advantage of it? And that's stuck with me ever since, to this day, to this conversation. Like, I'm not going to take advantage of this stuff anymore. I'm going to give back. I'm going to dedicate my life to these people and all the people around the world who need help.
Yeah, definitely. Dude, that's why I really appreciate you so much, honestly. Like Mike aside and people listening aside, like I seriously just admire like your love and care for like whether it's the poor or the less fortunate, and not just that, but you even kind of wrestling and thinking through those things, like why am I born here, and why do I have these quote unquote privileges,
right?
Or some would even say blessings, but you could even say like, well, does that mean that they're not blessed,
right?
Because they don't have what we have. And I really appreciate that about you. And so even so with you being a disciple of Jesus, what has because you're talking about like these different privileges, and to be honest, as much as we love sports, like it's a luxury.
It's a privilege.
It's a privilege to even like watch or professional sports, to go to a game, to have the equipment. But like with you being a disciple of Jesus now, what has your lens changed when you like look at sports as a fan, or even just playing it? Like, how has that changed for you now, or has it changed even before your journey with God?
Right. Yeah. I would say definitely before I became a disciple of Jesus, it was all about me, and that how can I be better because I want to be recognized? How can I be better because I just want to be better because I want to be better? Which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think a lot of that selfish ambition came in of I want to succeed because I want to be great, because I want to be noticed. And that was a big part of things, especially as I was on the all-star teams and those kind of stuff, right? But afterwards, when I became a disciple, I loved sports, but like you're saying, in a different way. I noticed how, like you said, it's a blessing, it's a privilege, it's just a thing that we get to enjoy being here in America, and or at least in first world type countries. And so getting to use it now, just something I enjoy. I think sometimes we have a weird idea about it's good to enjoy things, it's not bad to enjoy things. But now I want to enjoy things, but then use those things to the glory of God. So for example is, especially a lot of guys our age love sports, makes sense.
Yes.
Is that I can, because I love sports as well and I enjoy it, so I pay attention, I give some time to it, I am then able to connect with other guys my age like that. And then we start there. We grow a friendship, connection, whatever from there. And as we grow, that can almost always lead to eventually some kind of conversation surrounding God, church, spirituality, whatever it may be. And you actually can either convert guys because of that relationship that you have. And guys choose to follow Christ because they saw that, oh, this is a follower of Christ, and he still loves things like sports.
Yeah, he's
he
normal.
Still cares. Yeah, he's normal. He's not the holy monk dude that just sits in his temple all day.
That'd be interesting.
So, exactly, right? No, but I kind of don't blame people sometimes for thinking that way about Christianity. Yeah. But I think that's what's so cool about it. And then even when you're on the sport, playing a sport with your boys, and you're playing basketball, like different guys in the church, and just it's good to have a light-hearted side to the relationship, even where you're talking a little trash to each other. Of course, it's all in good faith. You love each other.
Of course.
But just that, I think it's just another facet of relationships where you can use to grow a relationship or start new ones. And I think when I'm doing that to further God's kingdom or increase God's glory, I think that's an amazing thing. I think that's why God made it, Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and as far as even the fun aspect, and how sports is always just unifying anyways, and when you put God in the picture, and you put like how Jesus was unifying in himself, just how he just brought in the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the lame, the crippled, just very welcoming. And I think it's important for us to like implement that mindset as well. Even just like yesterday, me and Gary Taylor, who is our region and our church's, he's, I guess you would call him our pastor. He, he took me out bowling yesterday, and it was kind of surprising because usually when we get together, we just we have deep talks, and I open up about my week and all that. But he took me bowling, and to be honest, I'm not a great bowler.
No, I suck.
But I like to play it
Right.
when we're around people, and we were having some competitive talk.
Oh, yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
The first game I was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Warmed up, but the second game I got a little bit going, and he beat
75.
me. He beat he beat me both times.
Yeah.
But it was all in fun.
Right.
And I think that helped us even just kind of grow closer even more. And then we were still able to talk about was able to talk about my week and just how challenging of a week it's been for me.
Right.
But just I think it is important to just find ways to kind of show people God through different avenues, and it's the whole point of even this podcast that we're trying to do here. Welcome back, guys. I'm here with my boy, Mr. Austin Boyd, and we're gonna be talking about sports, about what's going on in pro sports.
Yes.
So the recent thing that just ended was the NCAA tournament, and we call it March Madness, and honestly, I think it could definitely fit the description of this tournament.
Except for the championship game.
Yeah, no, that was definitely. I was expecting more for sure from the championship. But props to Michigan for getting there.
True.
For sure, but
maybe that's why they shouldn't even have been there.
Definitely, but Villanova. That's why.
Yeah, they killed it.
They destroyed the entire time.
Yeah.
Double-digit points, winning each tournament. I believe that's what it was.
Pretty much every game. So yeah.
Yeah, but there was definitely some Cinderella stories as well. A lot of upsets. What was the highlight of kind of watching or being a fan of the NCAA tournament this year?
My favorite thing. It's gonna sound so sinister. I just love when people's brackets get busted. I made a bracket a couple years ago, and it just got destroyed first round. So I was like, I hate this. But then when people's brackets get busted, but I think I did have some great friends who are big Michigan fans. So I'm not a huge Michigan fan. I'm just kind of indifferent about them. But I really liked that they made it, mainly because a lot of my friends were like, so they're super pumped for the championship game. So I was really pumped for the championship game too. But
yeah, I was definitely expecting.
Yeah, I think like 3/4 of it, Villanova just pulled away.
Yeah, but it started off nice. It started off
true. Yeah,
very competitive.
First 10 minutes of the first half was like pretty close, but it was a really low scoring game. I remember. I think both teams were off, and then Michigan just couldn't get on the right tracks, and then Villanova I think their threes just started going down every single shot, and
it was just especially forgetting that one kid's name who was just hitting three after three.
He had an Italian name, like Dimancio or something.
And I think, is he a freshman? Because I think he's gonna come back for.
Oh yeah,
the team.
no, I'm pretty sure he is. Let's see, if I can find him here. Nope. Let's see.
I'm sure people are probably yelling
I know, right?
His name.
Oh, Dante DiVincenzo.
There you go. There he is.
Got it.
Yeah, he was.
Love that name.
It's a beautiful name.
Honestly. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, he was just raining threes, nonstop, and just when it felt like Michigan could possibly catch up, he just
daggered
big time daggered it. So yeah, definitely NCAA tournament overall was pretty fun. Almost the most I've been into it this year, and last time I was really into it was when when Kawhi Leonard was there, and
monster.
Yeah, and San Diego State had a chance.
Yep.
But then the legend of Jimmer Fredette, if you remember.
Dude. Yeah.
But now you can kind of see who's doing what now.
Yeah.
But even Kawhi has right now he's out for the entire season.
I think so. I was just talking about it with some coworkers today. He has a shoulder thing right now.
Yeah. What do you think about that with the whole situation with him and the Spurs?
Apparently, the team doctors want him to play, or they cleared him to play.
They said that he's good.
Independent second opinion said, "Nah, you probably should wait."
Yeah.
So I keep hearing that. I think what's happening a little bit, just because people want drama, is people are hyping it up a little bit more than it is. Because Kawhi's a pretty chill dude.
He's super chill.
Yeah, I haven't seen him act out really in any way when I've seen him play.
Have you heard of like the comments that his teammates have made though?
I haven't heard those.
So they made some comments like Tony Parker, like he said a comment like, my injury was like 100 times worse.
Oh, I did hear that one. Yeah.
So I don't know. It sounds like there is something. And then even the coach Greg Popovich, he just said like, when his crew thinks he's ready, something along those lines, then we'll be here waiting. So kind of like a little jab at.
There's the distance, yeah.
So it's just interesting, but hey,
whatever. Kawhi can go to the Lakers. That's what I keep hearing.
I keep hearing that too. That would be interesting. That would definitely. True. I mean, he's not very Hollywood though. He's not very star. I mean, he's amazing for sure.
Oh yeah.
But
top 5.
I don't know if charisma is his big.
I mean, but neither is Ball. I mean, Alonzo is just.
That's very true.
Let's be honest. So
his dad, on the other hand,
lovely man. We'll say that. There it is.
We'll leave it at that. But speaking of basketball, I wanted to touch. So each episode, I want to highlight some inspirational athletes. And this happened a couple months ago, or maybe like 2 months ago. And I feel like it was big, but then it kind of went under the rug for a little bit for some reason, and not a lot of people are talking about it, which he's playing now, but Kevin Love, who actually I think he's injured again. He went back and then now he's injured again, but Kevin Love, if you guys don't know, he opened up about some mental health issues that he recently had, about a panic attack and him seeking therapy for that, and it was he experienced it this season, and it was at a game when he was playing against the Atlanta Hawks, and there was some things going on where he left the game early, and the teammates kind of were confronting him, hey, what's going on? Why'd you leave early? And when they had a team meeting, and apparently he just told them, like, this is what's going on. Like, I just had this panic attack and serious stuff, and he wrote an article in the Players Tribune and just talking about that, and even just him being vulnerable and open about something very personal like that. And he even mentioned like his own inspiration was another basketball player, DeMar DeRozan, who plays for the Toronto Raptors. He opened up by just sharing a tweet that said like, this depression is really getting to me. And it was just a random tweet, but he later on talked about, no, like I do struggle with depression. And I think just me personally hearing this about these athletes who we can see as like superheroes sometime,
right? Yeah.
Honestly, like just the things that they can do, and we see that they have this. That's a lot of times they have like mental problems that we don't really look at sometimes, and even something that I heard recently, and I hope this isn't true, but I heard that in the NBA they have like professional doctors for physical problems, but they don't have people to help them out with their mental problems that they have. They don't have that really accessible for them. But I want to get your thoughts about just mental health, not just in basketball, but in sports in general. Like, is this something that we're talking enough about, or even just being more aware about? Because I wouldn't even just say sports in general, just like in our society and world now, it's becoming a big topic. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would totally agree. Wouldn't surprise me if there was no mental health professionals that are looking out for the players. I mean, I remember a few years ago the big thing was there's no financial professionals to help out these young players who've grown up in the hood and never really had much money, and then they're given $10 million.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how do I
Yeah.
handle this responsibly? So I remember that being a thing, and I think this is the new phase we're in of awareness, is that even though these are amazing, top-of-the-line human bodies that we're watching play, like this, you know, we're literally just watching ginormous, for basketball, these ginormous men with giant hands and really good hand-eye coordination just jump 20,000 feet off the floor and just me as
it's like watching gladiators.
No, honestly, much. Like me as a little 5'11", 170 white dude, like I'm not ever gonna be like that, you know? So I think what's really interesting to me is seeing that and then seeing that, man, these dudes are just people, just like us. They just happen to have been given an extraordinary body.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens a lot is we're so focused on what we see that, oh, these people are doing amazing things, and this can apply to the world in general, is that, oh, this person doesn't look sick, or this person doesn't seem like they're doing that bad. But then when we truly talk to them, or we hear what's going on in those people's heads, or take an extra second even just to ask someone truly how they're doing, we find out there's so much more going on. And I think we just saw it earlier from DeRozan, is that he's just like, we are all dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
And so, because we're all human at the end of the day. So with that, I think even with me, like I mentioned earlier, is that I had stuff that I was dealing with coaches that was just like, they just didn't mesh, and that happens a lot in sports. Different personalities don't mesh well, or even just one-sided, where coaches are not good coaches.
No, yeah, that's
and so that's happens a lot, actually. I think a lot of, especially kids, get turned off by that.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is that professional athletes or collegiate athletes that get put in those situations are either put too much pressure on themselves because they feel like, I'm doing something wrong, or the personalities don't mix, and therefore a lot of stress comes out of that, and yet you're still expected to perform at 100%, which is a pretty difficult burden to bear. So I think a lot of athletes deal with this, and because a lot of them tend to be alpha males, they don't express it that much, or they kind of just bury it because I got to do my job.
Yeah, or even like we could be sometimes like, oh, like you can't see anything physically wrong with them.
Right.
So it's like, oh, it's just in your head or anything. It's all in your head, which it is all in their head. And so probably we need the help with that as well.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so cool about this is, and Kevin Love says it here, is where he's just like, it helps so much just to literally speak about this, to say the words, to get it off my chest. And that even connects spiritually, man, of disciples. We're called to talk to one another, help one another, confess to one another, encourage one another, all this stuff where it's verbal communication about what we're dealing with, good and bad. And it's just so important. It's just how we are as humans. And then we're expecting these people to, hey, just shut up and play well and we'll pay you.
Yeah.
It's, of course, things are going to go wrong. And I'm surprised that things haven't gone wrong earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And also because, like, with social media, everything is definitely more aware now. And so you definitely see, like, even people with, like, CTE problems or, like, concussions. And, like, you're seeing a lot of people who have, you know, suffered for that. I mean, the biggest one, because we're in San Diego, is Junior Seau. Like, horrible thing of, like, with what he did, of course.
He committed suicide, by the way. Yep.
Yeah, with his... that whole situation, it was just very horrible situation all around, and it all connected to that, like not justifying what he did, but there was definitely some concussions that played into all of those things, and you even hear about other people as well who were around that time of football. And I mean, I love the game of football. I mean, like it's something that is my sport. is before becoming a disciple, I lived, breathed, and died football.
Yeah.
But I do have concerns of like if I want my kid to play football because of things like that, which is hard because
it's a great sport.
It's a great sport, and it's taught me so much as far as like discipline and teamwork and all that. So it's just challenging, and so I think I think it's good that we're being aware of that now. I think I wish it could be more aware. Kind of like I said, like this story, like not a lot of people even knew about what Kevin Love shared, and who's an all-star, and even DeMar DeRozan, both all-stars. But it's a real thing, and I just we'll see where it goes, and hopefully we can just talk about that more.
Yeah.
But man, just sports, dude.
Sports is a beautiful thing, man. Good and bad of it. It's amazing.
Yep. Just life in itself. So now we have our topic of the episode, and today's topic is perseverance. And so, my boy, Austin, for you, perseverance, when you think of the word perseverance, what automatically comes to your mind? It's a very interesting word.
Yeah, the first thing that sticks out to me is perseverance always comes or is always a response to suffering. You don't persevere when things are easy.
Right.
It's just not the nature of the word.
Persevering through this like great weather.
Exactly. San Diego's 70 and sunny throughout the winter.
Way to persevere.
It's really hard sometimes to live out here. So exactly, we understand it, right? But I think even just expressing it I have to suffer in order to persevere. However I suffer, whatever is causing me to suffer, I still have to suffer in some way.
It's not a great package deal.
Right.
In order to have perseverance, you need some suffering. And so with sports, because this is also a sports podcast, what are your experiences with persevering personally? Like, because sports is, with any sport you're doing, it requires a lot of perseverance and not necessarily the suffering that we're going to talk about, but more of just like the physical and even what we were talking about earlier, a mental aspect of sports. Right. Like what have been some persevering experiences for you in sports for you? Yeah.
Well, since I played baseball for a long time, it is super hard. And whether it's just a game or not, you still feel like you're suffering, especially when you make a mistake, when you fail, the biggest ones that I still even remember them is like when you don't make the game-winning play, or I remember when I was like 12 years old, 7th grade or something. I was shortstop, and it was back in Little League. I think it was 6 or 7 innings.
Right.
And so bottom of the 7th, where the home team were up by 1, guys on 2nd and 3rd or something, and it's 2 outs. And got this
pressure.
Yeah, I was playing shortstop. I got this routine grounder. Should have been no big thing, but I just felt the pressure, and I just launched the ball over the first baseman, just way over his head. And both the guys score, we lose the game. And I was just like, as this 12-year kid, I'm like running, I'm crying to my dad. I'm just like, it's just some stupid little League game, right? But I'm like, just bawling my eyes out. And so even though it didn't affect really the things that we'll say quote unquote truly mattered in my life,
right.
This was a character building moment for me, is that I not only lost a game, which I'd lost plenty of games before that, but when it starting to feel like sports really mattered, I made a huge mistake, and I cost the game for my teammates, for their parents, for everybody. And myself, fans, right? All the fans watching me play. and just blew it. And I think that hurt my pride. That hurts I questioned my ability after that, and it took me a few days to brush it off and go, okay, I can do this. Let me go back, same position. I'm going to get that same grounder one of these days. It might even be the same situation. And I've got to be ready. I've got to push through. I got to persevere. So I think even though the sport itself, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because sports matter, but even though it's not the quote-unquote real part of my life at that time, is that it taught me and it gave me practice of how to suffer and how to persevere through that suffering so I could use that in even more important moments in my life, whether it's relationships or school or getting a job or whatever it is.
No, definitely. And it's a perfect segue, actually, because you're talking about how sports and persevering, like you could take that and implement it in a lot of things in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And, with your own personal walk with God, like, what are some things that you have had to persevere? I mean, I know some of them, but for those who don't know, what are some of the things that you've had to persevere in your walk with God?
It's almost always I have to persevere through my own mistakes. Almost always.
True.
And that's
an ongoing thing for all of us.
Yeah, right. Is that I will do something or create a situation that was dumb, wrong, whatever, and then I have to see the error of my ways and go, okay, I now need to push through this. I need to deal with the consequences. I need to take responsibility and grow in that part of my character and go, okay, either something needs to change. I need to talk with these people. I need to rebuild things, whatever it might be. So a specific instance is actually my senior year of high school, which of course I've told you this story before, but my senior year in high school, I became a disciple my junior year in high school, and then that was still a rough year, as most Christians' first year are, because I had to change the way I thought and did a lot of things. But my senior year, I decided to walk away from God because I met a girl at school, and actually met a few different girls at school, and decided I wanted to date them and just have immoral sexual relations with them. And so that was just really big for me, was that I made these stupid decisions, and I put myself out there in ways that God didn't want me to, because he wanted to protect me from all of what I was about to deal with. And I dealt with a lot of things. Either it was being rejected, or having really unhealthy relationships, or having a healthy relationship but then it crumbling before you like that. It's just all of these things that I put myself through. I had to see, wow, I'm suffering here, even if it's by my own hand. And I need to now persevere, not with my own hand. I need to persevere because I want to follow God, and God wants me to persevere, and he will give me the strength to persevere if I actually choose to rely on him and not just do whatever I want to do.
No, yeah.
So that was a big one for me.
No, of course. And I think it's especially hard when it's something that we cause ourselves. And it's like, and I think like, even like especially with sports, like when we know we mess up in something, and we know we cause like some goal to reach, whether it's an individual accolade or it's a team accolade, like it affects us. And especially in life, as you were saying, like just a lot of things. I know for me, just even like this all of last year, there's a lot of learning and kind of mistakes I've made, and definitely not fun. I personally hate making mistakes and feeling like I screwed up in something. And so even the next question is like, what could be difficult a lot is when you're persevering through suffering where you feel like you don't have control, where it's like the situation's completely out of your hands. Some would even say, like, if we were to connect it back to sports, like we can say referees like caused the game. That's an easy go to, and in some cases yes, in some cases it's difficult, and there's a bigger picture, because it's very difficult for a referee to referee an entire thing, which actually, now even thinking about it, kind of connects to who God is. Like he's like kind of almost refereeing
some
the
ways,
universe.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're all like going along his lines, his guidelines of life.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so the original question is like, how do you deal with persevering through suffering that you feel like you don't have control over?
Yeah. So, a great example of this, having given an example of me causing suffering myself, is one where I feel like it was put on me in some way was when I was applying to medical school my first round. I ended up not getting in anywhere, and this had been my dream for about 5 or 6 years, really since that first time I went to Haiti. And having that door shut in my face at that time really messed with me, because I had chosen to, I guess the word is identify myself in a lot of ways, that I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be this, and I, in a lot of ways, lost that, no, I'm a disciple of Jesus, and that's who I am, and if I happen to be a doctor, or I happen to be a baseball player, that's awesome.
Right.
So that was a really hard time. So how I dealt with that was, first off, the typical Christian things that are just so important, though, is that I prayed my heart out. When I was feeling emotional about it, when I was feeling rejected, when I was feeling angry at God, when I was feeling angry at the people who rejected me or whatever, when I was feeling like, oh, I'm not living up to my potential, or all these different thoughts, the thousands of different thoughts that can go through my head, that I really had in a lot of ways with baseball as well. And then also on top of that is I had to read scripture, especially the scriptures talking about God's promises to me or God's people, right? And how much he cares for them. And that doesn't mean that, oh, Austin, I'm going to get you in medical school. But most importantly is like, I, God, love you, want you to be with me now and for eternity.
Right.
So I really had to learn how to ground myself in God's promises, and that it's not about really how much I do here on this earth or how great I make myself out to be, or all the things that I accomplish, even if it's good stuff, out here, that matters, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't define me as a man. What should define me is God's love, and that I've chosen to accept that love, and am willing to obey every part of the covenant, the agreement that we've entered into together, just like a marriage or a friendship or family or whatever, And so I think that was really important for me, is having to realize what I had put my faith in, and a lot of it wasn't God. Even as a disciple of Christ for years at that point. And I had to see, whoa, this really has a big hold over my heart. And I think that's exactly why God did that. And then just for the audience, is that I've gotten into medical school this round, and I'm planning on going in a couple months.
Yeah.
So God's just, he works in those mysterious ways, man. That scripture's so true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And again, dude, like, I just respect you so much in persevering through that. And even just recently, just kind of things I've been going through personally. You've helped me out a lot in just seeing that God's plan is just way bigger than what we can even see right now. And even if it's like, we think we want to go one direction, and that might be true, but like, God's just like, no, I got taking you somewhere else. Which is hard. It's definitely not easy to persevere through things that you might not know where the outcome is. And for you, like, God allowed you to go to medical school,
right?
And for some people, that's not the case,
right?
For whatever reason, even just thinking about just Job, how he had to persevere through so
way
much.
Worse stuff than me.
Way worse than a lot of stuff. And God says that he doesn't deserve what he's experiencing,
right?
And I just love that perfect picture of God explaining to Job, like, can you like try to control the universe? Do you make the sun go up and go down and all these different things, like, and in a way of putting Job in his place, but I think also trying to help Job to understand, like, my job as your father and God is just way more complex than you could ever imagine.
Right.
Just know that I still love you.
Yeah.
Like, that's just trusting
Yeah.
and all that. And we had, I mean, thank God for the Bible that we have a lot of great examples.
Yeah, Job being one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes with Job, I'm glad you bring it up, is I think what's so important about that book, and the far majority of that book, is that it's like 35 plus chapters of Job having to wrestle in his head with his friends about what's happening to him. And that I think God comes in and God's like, God is God, and he makes sure everybody knows that, of like, oh, you think you can challenge me, okay.
Yes.
And that's the truth, is that we do that a lot, but God doesn't punish them or whatever.
No.
He just, oh, you think you can, well, get ready. I'm going to show you that I'm God. And I think that's just what's so cool about God, is he lets us wrestle and he lets us fight through things. And I think even just having talked about mental health, is that a lot of times, disciple or not, people who struggle with mental health, as we all do it some way, shape, or form in our lives, is that those are the times where we can really wrestle with life, with the world, and with God. And that's what's so cool about God, is that's what he wants.
Yeah.
You know, he wants us to figure things out, because that helps us build that conviction that God is worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and although all these other things like sports and even relationships on this earth and all this stuff is great. But God's like, no, I need you to know that I can give you everything that you need. You just have to go to me. So I just think that's so cool about that. About God.
Yeah, that is just so true. And even just that the relationship aspect of God, where he didn't have to talk to Job.
Right.
Really. He could have just like either been fed up with him and just like, all right, you're questioning me, like you're smited or you're smitten, however you
smoked.
Is that how you?
I have no. Smote just sounds better. Let's do that.
Let's just say smote then.
Smote.
God smote. But yeah, like just how God just like takes the time to like as a father, just explaining, just you just gotta persevere, like, and you did persevere, and
God blessed him.
He blessed him, and he doesn't really say why though. He doesn't say. He doesn't give a reason. Like, it's not like Job earned it, because he wasn't in the wrong in the first place. So it's like it's very complicated how that ends as well.
Yeah, it's a great book, man.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually studying it out right now, and so that's why it's kind of fresh. It's fresh in my mind, which is amazing.
Yeah, and since we're on the topic of scripture, might as well read this one. So I mentioned earlier that I would go to scripture a lot about God's promises, and this is the one that really stuck out to me in Hebrews 10, and this is the Hebrew author talking to the Christians about all of the sufferings they're dealing with and how they should respond. So this is Hebrews 10, 32 through 39. It says, "Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured a great conflict full of suffering. Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property, because you knew that you yourselves had better and lasting possessions. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere, so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a little while he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved." So I just love that, man, because it literally says exactly how I want to view all this stuff, is that I am not anywhere near where the first century Christians are going through in terms of persecution and suffering. But he very explicitly says in verse 34 that they remember that they have better and lasting possessions, and he is talking about their heavenly possessions that God is preparing for them. And also the idea that in verse 36, when he says, "You will receive what he has promised, and in just a little while he who is coming will come and will not delay." I think that idea of like God will come, and all of these things are going to happen. Whether I'm dead or not, God's going to come and fulfill what he's promised. And I think grounding myself in that versus, I didn't get into medical school, I'm not going to be a doctor, people are going to respect me, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So doing all that, I go, man, like, God's coming, and he's all that matters anyways. You know, when he comes,
Yeah.
who cares if I was a doctor or not, man? Like,
all this other stuff won't really matter.
Exactly. So, and all that matters is, do we do the will of God or not? So I just think, like, no matter what I do, when I do the will of God, whether it's sports, doctor, school, whatever, doing it for God and for the glory of God is everything.
Amen, dude. Dude, this has been fun. Thank you so much for just doing this with me, and thank you guys who are listening as well for this episode of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears podcast. Thank you so much for even joining along for this ride and this journey, and I hope you guys find this very encouraging and very helpful for you guys as well. So with that being said, we're going to be signing off, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Sports Spectrum.
Thanks, everyone.
Of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears podcast.